Welcome to an exile. The insiders in Ron DeSantis' camp say he's going to run. And of course, the pro-Trump crowd has come out and attacked him. And I'll bring up some of those tweets and answer them all. But welcome to an exile. I'm Doug. Here's the first headline. Breaking: DeSantis privately admits to allies he intends to run for president. That's not news to me. I've told you guys he's going to run. Get over it. He's going to run. The Washington Post reported that the political committee for DeSantis will serve as the launching pad for the governor's higher office ambitions. Any announcement, however, is far from soon. Sources expect DeSantis to finish out Florida's legislative session in May before announcing a run. So that's the first thing, is that people have said he needs to take care of Florida. His entire legislation session will end in May. So he'll have taken care of Florida with about all the laws he's going to pass. The Republicans' near total control over the state's governing body gives DeSantis an unfettered opportunity to implement the ambitious agenda before any presidential campaign. So he wants to take care of Florida first, and given all of the workings of the Republican Party throughout the Florida legislature, they'll be able to handpick and get a replacement in there and get it all worked out to work with his campaign. So Florida's not in peril. A new PAC called Never Back Down will be steered by Ken Cuccinelli, the former acting director for immigration services under President Trump. People familiar with the group's planning expect the committee to serve as a vehicle for large contributions in support of DeSantis by some of GOP's wealthiest donors, and the money's already pouring in. He's got so much dough, and he hasn't even announced yet. His coffers already dwarf Nikki Haley's. The governor has already secured seven-figure checks from investor Jeffrey Yass and Jude and Christopher Reyes, the brothers in charge of America's largest beer and food distributors, by the way, who formerly gave mostly to Trump. So there's a lot of donor money that is going from Trump. They're done with him. They're moving on. Now MAGA is staying with Trump. That's fine. That's normal. Trump should have his fans. DeSantis for months has flirted with a presidential run, and in recent weeks released his own book, The Courage to Be Free, which immediately topped the New York Times bestseller list. This is also a normal sign that someone is about to run for president. Pence wrote his book, Hillary wrote her book, Obama wrote, I don't know, 2 biographies about himself. Trump wrote his books. It's a sign. Despite President Donald Trump levying attacks against his soon-to-be rival, DeSantis has declined to fire his own salvos. When asked to respond, the governor speaks broadly about his plans to avoid criticizing other Republicans. While the team assesses how and when to engage the former president, Ron DeSantis is going to have to find his own way to hit back at Trump. But for right now, DeSantis is running as a Reaganite of you never criticize a fellow conservative or a fellow Republican. Okay, so then came Twitter with all of the typical responses, and I read them all in my comments too. And I'd like to answer some of them and show you why they're not really arguments that DeSantis should follow. Here's replying to Jenna Ellis, who posted about the Ron DeSantis thing. Remember, Jenna Ellis is one of Trump's closest allies, and she is very pro Ron DeSantis getting in. Biggest mistake of his political career. Not only will he lose big, said this tweeter, but his image, etc., will suffer at the hands of Trump. He should wait. Otherwise, he only has himself to blame. Politicians that are not ready to get into the mud should not run. And Ron DeSantis is making the decision. He's ready to get in. It's going to be ugly. Every time someone says something positive about Trump, Team DeSantis is going to go, oh, he lost, get over it. Anytime someone says something positive about DeSantis, they're going to be called, you sellout rhino globalist. Both responses are wrong. That's why I'm giving you my opinion, which is nearly always right. Governor Ron DeSantis is an establishment candidate. Those who vote for him fail to understand not only his background, but his funding and political donors. Know thine enemy. Ron DeSantis is not the enemy. This is going to be all the MAGA line. MAGA is part of its own echo chamber culture, its own group. They have their own sayings. They have their own positions. But I'll only say that the Democrats are terrified of DeSantis. That is, they despise him. And that's why so much negative press has come out about him. I judge a man by who his enemies are. And Ron DeSantis has all of the right enemies. This is not a globalist. And I also notice that it's mostly lies being told about him, like that George Soros endorsed him. We debunked that. It absolutely didn't happen, and it ran all through MAGA. It's not true. Well, if the New York and Georgia AGs have their way, Trump will be tied up in court for years. DeSantis is banking on that. My guess that the Bush regime is behind DeSantis and AG activity. They just throw out their random bad guy. I've looked into what Bush is doing. He has not weighed in on this at all. And he's not a regime. He doesn't have a ton of money. He's not some dark global capitalist that I hear being run. It's very unpopular to say that among MAGA, I know. Bush is not a bad guy. Conspiracy theories do not help us. Here's Common Sense tweeting, "This will be his demise. Casey, his wife, is just as bad. A Jill Biden drooling ladder climber we will never forget." Now, does that sound nice? They're already going after his wife. And this is going to be the kind of stuff you're going to hear. Remember, Trump called Ted Cruz's wife ugly. Politics are mean. And DeSantis is stepping into a cage fight with Trump because there's only two candidates, and that's Trump and DeSantis. Trump will just run as independent if he doesn't get the nomination. DeSantis is splitting the party. How is DeSantis splitting the party if Trump runs third party? And by the way, this was actually what George Soros predicted, that if Trump and DeSantis go out and if DeSantis shows favor, Trump will run third party. That's what Soros wants, by the way, because Trump will basically be the Ross Perot. And the Republican Party has already said that you can't get on the debate stage unless you sign a statement saying that you will support whoever the nominee is. So that's the cost of admission to get on the Republican stage. Don't do it, sir. Work with Trump and help him win 2024. You will be obvious candidate with very likely chance to win in 2028. Real leadership doesn't wait. He should jump in. And even if he wants to support Trump or be vice president or run in 2028, Ron DeSantis has to run in 24. He needs the experience. He needs to build his coalition. He needs to step into the field and show that he's ready to be presidential candidate. That's even if he runs in 28. You have to run in 24. This is just a Trump supporter afraid. And if they really weren't afraid, they wouldn't be saying all this stuff about Ron DeSantis. Everyone knows that this is going to be between Trump and DeSantis right now. Trump is in the lead with 60% of the CPAC vote going for him and 60% of the New Hampshire vote going for him. It's DeSantis has to take it from him. And I don't know what his plan's going to be, but I'll keep you guys posted. What is going to be the greatest run for our side? It is going to be Trump versus DeSantis. Get used to it. I'm Doug in Exile.